I overheard my parents plotting to move my younger sister into my condo for Christmas, without asking me. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Harper Lane. I'm 28, independent, and I finally bought my first condo after years of saving. I work at a small design firm and have always been proud of the life I built on my own. But when I overheard my parents, Marge and Dennis, talking to my sister Lila on the phone, I felt a mix of shock and anger. They were planning to move her into my home for the holidays, acting like it was already decided. At first, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own family didn't even think to ask me if it was okay. I remembered all the times they had favored Lila over me, and it hurt more than I expected. Instead of confronting them right away, I decided to listen more. I wanted to understand how deep this plan went. By the time they arrived at my condo, I had made up my mind. I welcomed them with a smile, hiding my true feelings. They were cheerful and oblivious, already acting like the condo was theirs. Inside, I was calm but determined. This was my space, my rules, and my life. They were about to learn that I wouldn't be pushed around anymore. What happened next changed everything, and it taught me the power of standing up for myself, even when it's your own family trying to take advantage of you. A few days after overhearing them, I started noticing strange behavior. My parents, Marge and Dennis, seemed distracted and whispered on the phone more than usual. Lila was involved too, calling them often at odd hours. Something didn't feel right. One evening, I stayed in the kitchen while they talked in the living room. I couldn't help overhearing pieces of their conversation. They spoke about my condo casually, like it was already agreed that Lila would move in. They discussed when she would arrive and what she would take with her. My heart sank. It hit me hard. My home, the place I worked so hard for, was being planned over my head. I felt a mix of shock and anger I couldn't shake. How could they make decisions about my life without even asking me? The betrayal cut deeper than I expected, because this wasn't a small thing. It was my personal space, my sanctuary. I tried to act normal, but inside I was tense. Every laugh, every casual remark from them felt like a reminder that they were plotting behind my back. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, trying to understand how they could be so careless about my feelings. At that moment, I realized I had a choice: let them take control or find a way to protect what was mine. My mind started racing with plans. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something had to be done, and I had to be careful. That night, I lay awake thinking about boundaries, respect, and how far some people are willing to go for their own convenience. One thing was clear: I wasn't going to let my condo, or my life, be decided by anyone but me. During a family visit, I decided to stay close but out of sight. I didn't want them to know I was listening, yet I needed to hear the full plan. I quietly lingered near the living room, pretending to check my phone, but my ears were sharp. Then I heard Marge's voice, calm and casual. "Harper won't mind, it's Christmas. We just need her condo for a few weeks." My stomach twisted. I froze, trying to process her words. It wasn't a question, they assumed I would be okay with this. Before I could respond, Lila laughed lightly. "Of course, it's fine. I'll just bring some things over and make it cozy." The way she said it, without hesitation or concern, made my blood boil. They weren't even thinking about asking me, they treated my home as if it belonged to them. Anger and disbelief surged through me. Shock made it hard to breathe, but the betrayal hurt the most. These were the people I trusted, the people I believed cared about my boundaries, and yet here they were, planning to use my space without my permission. I felt my hands clench into fists, and my mind raced. How could they dismiss my feelings so easily? How could Lila be so careless, so entitled, about something that mattered deeply to me? In that moment, I realized I couldn't let them get away with it. My condo was mine, and I had the right to control what happened there. The calm smiles and laughter in the room only fueled my determination. I would need a plan, and they wouldn't see it coming. After hearing them, I quickly excused myself and went to my room. My heart was pounding, and my hands trembled as I closed the door behind me. I sank onto the edge of my bed, trying to calm down, but their words kept echoing in my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about the way they planned to move Lila in as if I didn't exist. It wasn't just today, it was part of a pattern I had felt my whole life. I remembered countless times they tried to influence my decisions, which college to attend, which job to take, even who I should spend time with. Each time, I swallowed my feelings and went along, hoping it would pass. But now, the weight of those old memories mixed with the new betrayal. It hit me hard that this was still happening, even after all the years I had tried to assert myself. My condo, a symbol of my independence, was suddenly threatened by the same control I had faced as a child. I realized something crucial: I couldn't let this slide. I wasn't going to quietly accept their plans or let Lila take over my space. For too long, I had allowed others to dictate my life, and it had left me frustrated and powerless. Not anymore. Sitting there, I made a promise to myself. This time, I would act. I would take control of the situation and ensure my boundaries were respected. I wouldn't let anyone, not even family, undermine what I had worked so hard to build. For the first time in years, I felt a clear sense of determination and strength. When the day arrived for their visit, I put on a calm face. I acted as if I hadn't heard a single word of their conversation. Every smile, every greeting was measured, polite, and welcoming. I offered hugs, poured drinks, and helped carry groceries inside, all while keeping my thoughts tightly controlled. Marge and Dennis chattered happily about holiday plans, completely unaware that I already knew their intentions. Lila, cheerful and carefree, commented on how cozy my living room would be once she settled in. I nodded and laughed along, masking the storm brewing inside me. As I moved around the condo, arranging snacks and setting out decorations, my mind was far from the holiday cheer. I ran through possibilities, thinking several steps ahead. If they thought they could manipulate me, they had another thing coming. I would show them that I wasn't someone to be pushed around or taken advantage of. Every friendly gesture I offered was part of the act. I kept my voice light and my expressions warm, but inside, I was calculating. I considered the best way to turn their assumptions against them, how to make sure they learned a lesson without realizing it until it was too late. Watching them settle in, so confident and unbothered, made me more determined. Their sense of entitlement fueled my resolve. I realized I had the upper hand simply because they had underestimated me. While they thought this Christmas was all about their plans, I knew I was quietly setting the stage for my own victory. By the time evening arrived, everything was in place. I smiled, poured more drinks, and silently promised myself I would make sure this holiday ended on my terms. When the doorbell rang, I opened it with a bright smile. "Welcome," I said warmly, stepping aside so my parents and Lila could come in. I made sure my tone sounded cheerful and inviting, though beneath it, every word and gesture was deliberate. They stepped inside, arms full of bags and gifts, chattering about holiday plans and how much fun they would have. I led them through the condo, pointing out the decorations and offering drinks. Every compliment I gave felt like part of the act, a mask to hide my growing resolve. Marge's eyes sparkled as she admired the living room, while Dennis carried on talking about seating arrangements for Christmas dinner. Lila wandered around, moving cushions and straightening pictures, as if she already owned the place. They didn't notice the slightest hesitation in my smile or the way my mind raced with plans. I poured hot chocolate and handed out plates of snacks, making small talk about work, weather, and local events. Inside, I stayed perfectly composed, my pulse steady despite the tension. Their excitement, their carefree attitude, made the contrast between us so sharp, I was aware they were blind. As they settled onto the couch, laughing and joking, I realized how much control I still had. They thought this was their holiday, their opportunity, and yet everything was quietly under my watch. The calm I projected was my shield, and behind it, I was already preparing the steps that would turn the situation completely around. Watching them enjoy themselves, oblivious to my awareness, filled me with a quiet determination. Their cheerful ignorance only strengthened my focus, and I knew that soon, the tables would turn, and I would be the one in control of how this Christmas unfolded. Dinner was served, and I watched as Lila casually took control of the space. She pulled out decorations from her bag, rearranging items on shelves and counters. She even started moving cushions and blankets, humming as if she had always lived here. Each small action made my chest tighten. Marge and Dennis smiled at her, clearly approving, and I noticed how quickly they accommodated her choices. It was like my condo had become hers overnight. I could feel my anger rising, but I kept my voice calm and my movements steady. I greeted them politely, passed the dishes, and poured drinks without a hint of my inner frustration. As I served food, memories of my childhood flashed in my mind. Every holiday, every birthday, every small achievement had been overshadowed by their attention to Lila. She was always praised first, always given more, always allowed to bend the rules. Even now, they were repeating the same pattern, and I could see it clearly. The unfairness stung, but it also fueled a quiet determination inside me. This wasn't just about Lila or the condo, it was about standing up for myself, reclaiming control, and refusing to let their favoritism dictate my life. I forced a smile as Lila commented on how cozy the room felt and how well I had prepared everything. I nodded and agreed, all the while planning my next moves. Their sense of entitlement only made me more focused. I realized I had the advantage, and soon, they would see that I wasn't the passive person they thought I was. By the end of dinner, I had a clear understanding of what needed to happen. My patience and control were my tools, and I was ready to use them to turn the situation around completely. After dinner, I excused myself under the pretense of checking on some work. Once inside my room, I pulled out my phone and called a real estate agent I trusted completely. I explained the situation briefly, asking for discretion and speed. There was no time to waste. Within hours, my condo was officially listed. I made sure everything was done quietly, photographs, paperwork, and online listing, without alerting anyone in my family. I requested a fast-track process, knowing that the sooner it moved forward, the less chance they would have to interfere. I also spoke with a lawyer to confirm all legal and financial requirements were handled properly. I wanted to make absolutely certain the sale would be final and binding, leaving no room for objections from Marge, Dennis, or Lila. Every signature, every clause was checked twice. While they believed they were settling in for a cozy holiday, I was already setting plans in motion that would take control completely out of their hands. The sense of calm determination inside me contrasted sharply with their blissful ignorance. They were planning to use my space, but I was quietly reclaiming it on my terms. Even as I moved around the condo later that evening, I kept a cheerful demeanor, serving snacks and chatting with them as if nothing had changed. Behind my calm exterior, the sale process was advancing rapidly, and soon they would discover that their assumption of entitlement would be completely overturned. By the time the night ended, I felt a surge of satisfaction. The first steps of my plan were in motion, and I had full confidence that it would succeed. Finally, I was no longer a passive participant, I was in control, and the tables were about to turn. The next day, I joined my family as if everything were normal. I laughed at their jokes, helped with small tasks, and chatted about holiday plans, all while hiding the storm inside me. They had no idea I already knew their intentions, and I used their ignorance to stay calm and collected. As the hours passed, I noticed how quickly their complaints and demands appeared. Lila wanted this moved, that adjusted, and Marge kept suggesting changes that suited her daughter. Dennis commented on what should be done to make everyone comfortable. Their selfishness was on full display, and each remark strengthened my resolve. I remembered the countless times I had given up my own plans for their convenience. I had postponed vacations, adjusted schedules, and even sacrificed opportunities just to keep the family happy. I realized then how little any of it had been appreciated. While I had tried to show loyalty, they had only assumed it was natural and expected. Listening to them now, I felt a wave of clarity. Their sense of entitlement, their belief that I would simply comply, reminded me of all the times I had been overlooked or dismissed. The condo, their casual attitude, their expectations, it was all part of the same pattern that had followed me for years. Despite the tension building inside, I kept my demeanor calm. I poured drinks, served snacks, and offered smiles, hiding the fire of determination within. Every selfish comment, every thoughtless demand, only reinforced my plan. By the evening, I knew one thing clearly: I would no longer allow my sacrifices to be taken for granted. I had the chance to turn this around, and I wasn't going to waste it. For once, I would put myself first and make sure they understood the consequences of their actions. Late that evening, I cleared my throat and smiled. "I have a little surprise for everyone," I said, trying to keep my voice light and cheerful. Their curiosity sparked immediately, and they followed me into the living room, chatting and laughing, completely unaware of what awaited them. When we reached the center of the room, I stepped aside, and they froze. Right in the middle of the living room was a large for sale sign, bright and official, clearly showing that the condo was on the market. Silence fell. Marge's jaw dropped, her hands trembling slightly. Dennis froze, eyes wide, as he struggled to speak. Lila's cheerful smile vanished, replaced by disbelief and panic. I watched them process the reality slowly, feeling the tension in the room rise like an electric charge. I remained calm, taking a deep breath, letting the moment sink in for them. Then I spoke, clearly and firmly: "I've always welcomed you, but I decide what happens in my home." The words hung in the air, final and undeniable. Their faces turned red with shock and frustration. They tried to argue, to explain, to insist, but the truth was set: there was nothing they could do to reverse it. The condo, the place they had assumed they could claim for their holiday plans, was no longer theirs to control. For the first time, the roles had shifted. I wasn't the quiet, accommodating one anymore. I was in charge, and they were confronted with the consequences of underestimating me. The mixture of shock and helplessness on their faces was the result of years of taken-for-granted loyalty finally meeting firm boundaries. In that moment, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I had taken control, and it was undeniable, irreversible, and entirely mine. Immediately, my parents started speaking at once, voices sharp and tense. They tried to twist the situation, reminding me of family obligations, past generosity, and even questioning my judgment. Their words came fast, hoping to rattle me, but I stayed composed, refusing to react with anger. Lila looked between them and me, her confidence fading as the reality hit. She opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing there was no argument that could sway the outcome. Her expectation that I would step aside evaporated before her eyes. For the first time, she understood that I wasn't the easygoing sister she had counted on. I kept my voice steady, calmly explaining that decisions about my life and my home were mine alone. I didn't shout, I didn't gloat, I simply stated the truth. Each word was deliberate, carrying the weight of years I had allowed my boundaries to be ignored. Watching them process the situation, I felt a complex mix of emotions. There was relief, knowing that I had asserted myself. There was tension, sensing their disappointment and frustration. And beneath it all, there was a quiet satisfaction. It wasn't about punishing them cruelly, it was about fairness, about reclaiming respect and showing that I had control over my own life. As the argument dwindled and the room grew silent, I took a deep breath and let myself feel the moment fully. The condo, my effort, and my independence were finally acknowledged, at least indirectly. For the first time in years, the family dynamic had shifted, and I could appreciate the justice of it, without bitterness, only the calm knowledge that I had stood my ground. A few days later, I met with the agent and lawyer one last time. Every signature was final, every document in order, and the sale of my condo became official. It was a relief to know the process was complete and irreversible. Sitting alone afterward, I allowed myself to reflect on everything that had happened. I thought about how long I had tolerated control from others, how often I had let people's expectations outweigh my own needs. This experience had taught me the value of standing firm and asserting my rights, even when those closest to me tried to dismiss them. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of empowerment. I had turned a situation that could have left me feeling small and manipulated into one that highlighted my independence and strength. Every moment of careful planning, every decision to stay composed and observant, had paid off. I thought about the tension, the confrontation, and the clarity I gained. It wasn't just about the condo, it was about my life, my choices, and my right to enforce them. I realized how important it was to recognize when people try to take advantage and to act decisively without guilt or hesitation. A calm satisfaction settled over me. I no longer felt pressured by family expectations or their sense of entitlement. The betrayal I experienced had been a catalyst, and instead of breaking me, it had made me stronger. In that quiet moment, I felt a true sense of freedom. I had reclaimed my space, my voice, and my authority. I knew I could move forward without fear of manipulation, confident that I could protect what mattered most and finally live life on my own terms. Looking back, I want to share this with anyone who might be facing something similar. Sometimes the people closest to you can betray you, but you have the right to protect your life and your peace. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I also learned the strength that comes from standing up for yourself. This experience showed me the importance of setting boundaries and not letting anyone assume control over your life. I realized that independence isn't just about having a space of your own, it's about respecting yourself enough to make decisions that align with your values and priorities. Now, I'm looking forward to a fresh start. I've already begun planning my move to a new city, a place where I can build my life on my own terms, free from manipulation or unrealistic expectations. For the first time, I feel the excitement of possibilities rather than the weight of family obligations that don't respect me. I want anyone listening to consider this carefully. How often do we allow others to control our choices because it's easier than standing up for ourselves? How many times do we sacrifice our peace to avoid conflict, even when it's not fair? I hope my story encourages you to think about your own life and the ways you assert your boundaries. Standing up for yourself may be uncomfortable at first, but the sense of freedom, confidence, and self-respect that follows is priceless. Remember, taking control doesn't make you selfish, it makes you strong. Protect your space, your time, and your energy. Decide for yourself what matters most and never let anyone else dictate the terms of your life. Do you think I handled my family the right way by taking control of my condo, or should I have let them stay for Christmas? I'm curious about your thoughts. Share in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like this.